In this episode, we're going to learn how to outline response goals that balance three forces that always pull against each other during incidents: containment, recovery, and business impact. Beginners often assume the goal is simply to stop the attacker, but incident leadership is rarely that simple, because stopping harm can require disruptive actions that harm the business in different ways. At the same time, pushing too hard for fast recovery can leave attackers in place or preserve an untrustworthy system state, which creates bigger problems later. The incident leader's job is to define goals that keep the response disciplined, defensible, and aligned with what the organization can tolerate. When goals are clear, tasking becomes clearer, communication becomes easier, and decisions feel less like emotional arguments. When goals are unclear, teams bounce between urgent impulses, like shut it down, keep it running, investigate more, tell everyone, and the incident becomes chaotic. By the end, you should be able to hear a scenario and state response goals in plain language that guide action while acknowledging trade-offs. A good starting point is defining what each of these three forces means, because clarity here prevents common misunderstandings. Containment is the set of actions that limit the spread or impact of the incident, such as isolating affected systems, disabling compromised accounts, blocking malicious connections, or restricting access paths. Recovery is the set of actions that restore normal operations safely, such as bringing services back online, restoring data, validating system trust, and returning users to functional access. Business impact is the effect the incident and the response have on the organization's ability to operate, meet obligations, serve customers, and maintain trust, including financial and reputational consequences. The tricky part is that containment can increase business impact if it breaks critical services, and recovery can increase security risk if it restores systems before trust is rebuilt. A balanced goal set recognizes these tensions instead of pretending one goal is always dominant. The exam often tests this balance by offering answer choices that pursue one goal aggressively while ignoring the others, and your job is to choose the option that reflects disciplined trade-offs. Response goals should be written mentally as outcomes, not activities, because activities can be endless and outcomes guide prioritization. An outcome is something you can verify, like active attacker access is prevented from reaching critical systems, or critical customer services are restored with validated integrity, or stakeholder updates reflect confirmed facts without contradiction. Activities are things you do, like analyze logs or hold meetings, and those are useful only if they serve outcomes. For beginners, the simplest way to think about this is that goals answer why we are doing something, and tasks answer how we will do it. If your goals are weak, tasks become random, and the team will confuse busyness with progress. A leader outlines goals that keep everyone aligned when stress rises, and those goals should be specific enough to guide decisions without becoming tool-specific. This is the mindset shift. You don't manage an incident by doing everything. You manage it by pursuing the right outcomes in the right order. A common first-hour goal that balances these forces is to create shared situational awareness with evidence-based confidence. This goal supports containment because you cannot contain well without knowing what is affected, and it supports business impact management because you cannot communicate accurately or choose tolerable actions without understanding the situation. Situational awareness includes what is confirmed, what is suspected, what systems are involved, what the timeline suggests, and what the team is doing next. This is why accurate tracking and a reliable source of truth are so important, because they make situational awareness a team property rather than a set of individual opinions. For beginners, the key idea is that clarity is a control because it reduces the chance of impulsive or contradictory actions. In exam scenarios, when things are confusing, the best answer often supports building situational awareness, validating evidence, and assigning ownership, because that creates the foundation for balanced containment and recovery decisions. Containment goals should be framed as limiting harm while preserving options, because containment is most valuable when it prevents escalation without creating irreversible damage to operations. For example, a balanced containment goal might be to stop active spread or unauthorized access while maintaining essential business functions where possible. That language matters because it signals that you will choose targeted containment levers first when appropriate, such as restricting a compromised account's access or isolating a specific segment, rather than immediately shutting down everything. At the same time, the goal should allow for stronger actions if evidence shows rapid harm, because sometimes decisive disruption is the lesser evil. A good containment goal also includes protecting evidence, because evidence supports later scoping and accountability, and losing it can force you into guessing. Beginners often treat containment as a single action, but it is usually a series of actions that become stronger as confidence and urgency increase. On the exam, answers that reflect controlled escalation of containment, paired with documentation and evidence discipline, often align with strong leadership practice. Recovery goals should be framed as restoring service and trust, not just restoring service, because a system that is online but untrustworthy can cause ongoing harm. A balanced recovery goal might be to restore critical services in a prioritized order using validated, known good states, while monitoring for signs of recurrence. This goal respects business impact because it focuses on critical functions first, but it also respects security because it insists on validation rather than rushing. Recovery also includes restoring access for users and ensuring that the restored environment is stable, because unstable recovery can create new outages and erode stakeholder confidence. A common beginner mistake is to view recovery as the end of the incident, when in fact recovery is often when the organization decides whether it will prevent relapse. A good leader treats recovery as a controlled process, with checkpoints that confirm the system is safe enough to return to normal operations. Exam questions often test whether you understand that recovery choices must be evidence-based and prioritized, not driven by pressure alone. Business impact goals should be framed as managing consequences and maintaining trust, because business impact is not only downtime, it is also uncertainty, misinformation, and reputational damage. A balanced business impact goal might be to maintain accurate stakeholder communication, protect customer trust, and preserve the organization's ability to operate while containment and recovery progress. This goal acknowledges that communication is a protective control because consistent updates reduce rumors and help decision-makers plan. It also acknowledges that the incident's impact includes the response's impact, such as whether containment actions disrupt critical functions or whether recovery choices create long-term instability. For beginners, it helps to think of business impact as the shape of harm the organization experiences, whether from the attacker or from the response itself. A leader doesn't ignore business impact, and they also don't let business impact pressure erase security discipline. They balance both by defining priorities and trade-offs clearly. On the exam, the best answers often show you are thinking about stakeholders, operational continuity, and disciplined communication alongside technical containment. Now let's discuss how to balance these goals in practice, because balance is not a vague compromise, it is often a sequence. In many incidents, the sequence begins with stabilizing and clarifying, then moves to targeted containment, then shifts to prioritized recovery, while communication runs continuously in parallel. That sequence is not rigid, but it helps prevent common mistakes, like rushing into recovery before containment or delaying containment, because you are trying to be perfectly certain. A balanced goal set often includes an explicit prioritization of critical services, because recovery cannot happen everywhere at once, and business impact depends on what is most important to keep running. It also often includes an explicit commitment to evidence preservation and documentation, because those practices support both containment decisions and later learning. If an incident is actively causing harm, containment goals may temporarily dominate, but recovery and business impact goals still matter in choosing how you contain. If an incident is contained, recovery goals may dominate, but containment still matters in ensuring you don't reopen paths for recurrence. Balance is therefore dynamic and tied to the incident's phase and evidence. Trade-offs become clearer when you ask a few simple questions that incident leaders use repeatedly. What is the worst likely harm if we do nothing for the next hour? And what is the worst likely harm if we take a particular containment action now? What is the cost of downtime for the affected service? And what is the cost of leaving it running if it is compromised? What evidence do we have? And what evidence would increase confidence enough to justify stronger action? Who has authority to accept the business impact of a disruptive move? And how fast can we get that decision? What recovery options exist, such as backups or alternate workflows? And how do those options change our risk tolerance? These questions translate the abstract idea of balance into concrete reasoning that guides decisions. They also align with what the exam tests, which is best next step judgment under uncertainty. Beginners do not need to answer these questions perfectly. They need to show they understand that decisions must be justified by risk and impact, not by impulse. A practical example of balance is an incident where a critical service is suspected of compromise, but is also essential for business operations. A containment-only mindset might shut it down immediately, stopping potential harm, but possibly causing major disruption. A recovery-only mindset might keep it running while planning fixes, risking ongoing compromise and broader damage. A balanced goal set might aim to limit exposure by applying targeted restrictions, such as limiting access paths, increasing monitoring, and isolating non-essential connections, while preparing for a controlled downtime window if evidence confirms compromise. It might also prioritize capturing key evidence and building a timeline so decisions are based on facts, not fear. The leader would involve the right business authority to accept any disruption and would communicate status in accurate, measured terms. This example shows that balance is not indecision. It is disciplined sequencing and stakeholder-aligned decision-making. In exam questions, the best answer often reflects this controlled approach rather than an extreme. Another common scenario is an account compromise that affects a high-privilege user. A containment-only approach might reset and disable broadly without considering operational dependency, potentially locking out key responders or business functions. A business impact-only approach might avoid disruption and allow the attacker continued access. A balanced goal set would aim to stop unauthorized access quickly while preserving essential operations, perhaps by disabling or restricting the compromised account, validating recent actions, and restoring access through controlled methods. It would also include a scoping goal to determine what the account could reach and whether other accounts show similar patterns. Recovery goals would include restoring trustworthy access and ensuring that authentication controls are strengthened to prevent immediate recurrence. Communication goals would focus on accurate updates to affected stakeholders without overclaiming certainty. Balance here is achieved by using identity controls as targeted containment while coordinating with business needs. It's also important to recognize that balanced goals support better communication because they give you a stable narrative for stakeholders. When you can say the team is focused on limiting harm, restoring critical services safely, and managing business impact through clear priorities, stakeholders can understand the plan and stop demanding contradictory actions. Stakeholders often push for either maximum security or maximum uptime, and balanced goals explain why neither extreme is safe. Balanced goals also provide a framework for updates, because you can report progress in each area, such as what containment actions were taken, what recovery steps are underway, and what the current business impact is. This reduces the risk of inconsistent messaging and helps maintain trust. A leader who can articulate balanced goals is less likely to be pulled into reactive decisions because they have a clear compass. The exam often rewards this because it reflects mature incident leadership. To close, outlining response goals that balance containment, recovery, and business impact is about defining outcomes that guide disciplined decisions under uncertainty. Containment goals limit harm while preserving options and protecting evidence. Recovery goals restore critical services and trust in a prioritized and validated way. And business impact goals manage consequences through continuity planning and disciplined communication. Balance is dynamic and often achieved through sequencing, where clarity and targeted containment come first. Recovery follows with validation, and communication and tracking remain continuous. Trade-offs are unavoidable, but they can be managed through evidence-based reasoning, clear authority alignment, and realistic understanding of operational constraints. When you can state these goals plainly and connect them to the incident phase and stakeholder needs, you're demonstrating the exact kind of incident leader judgment the GCIL exam is designed to test. Keep your goals outcome-focused, keep them evidence-driven, and keep them aligned with both security and business reality.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.